Good afternoon, and how is it? How are you today? We're here on a Friday afternoon, and as I speak, the election in the US has still not sort of come to a close. The counting's still going on, and they say that Joe Biden has now taken the lead in Pennsylvania. So it's looking like he's going to win. However, Trump is promising legal action because he's not happy with the way the count has gone, and it looks like this is going to end up in the courts. I listened to one of his press conferences last night, and I mean he made some seemingly valid points, but I don't know where the evidence is, and if there has been voter fraud, it should be looked into. But I was a councillor, and I've seen many election counts here in the UK, and it would be very difficult to run a big fraud because you'd have to involve so many different people, and all these people doing the counting, they're not politicians. They're usually officers of the state, officers of, in our case, the local council, and to tell them to fiddle a vote or discard ballots or accept ballots that were not valid. I mean, you'd have to involve a conspiracy of hundreds and thousands of people in America to get everybody to be involved in a fraud. So I don't know. I mean, these people are usually, obviously they have political views, but in the case of what they're doing, they're usually neutral. They're career council workers or local or government workers. So why would they bother to defraud one candidate or another just for the sake of it? I mean, you couldn't pay off thousands of people and get them all to remain silent to commit voter fraud. However, at a higher level, there may be things going on, and we saw this many years ago in Florida. I think it was the Clinton election. They said there was fraud then in Florida. So we have seen this sort of action before, but we'll have to see how it pans out over the next couple of days. I know a lot of you don't like Trump over here, but he would be better for the UK in terms of giving us a favourable trade agreement and a quick trade agreement. Biden, on the other hand, doesn't seem to like our Prime Minister, Boris Johnson. He called him a Trump clone, which I thought was very unfair. And he also seems to be in favour of us staying in the European Union. And I don't think he'll be in any rush to give us a favourable trade deal, as was Barack Obama, who said we'd be at the back of the queue for a trade agreement, which was a real slight on the UK, a real slap in the face on the UK. Other people have said he's also close to China. And, we've seen Trump being the only world leader to stand up to China and say, well, look, we've had enough of this unfair tariffs. And, he has at least stood up to China. And I fear that could all go out the window, and it could see China becoming more and more dominant. Now, here in the UK, we've seen England go into the second lockdown this year for 4 weeks. And we also have seen the Chancellor, barely a week after we saw the Job Furlough scheme end, and they brought in this new scheme, which was called the Job Support Scheme. And now we've heard that the Job Furlough scheme, the original Job Furlough scheme, maybe under slightly different terms, will be extended until the end of March. So that's good news for businesses and for employees who may have otherwise been laid off. But it will cost the country a lot of money. It's running at billions every day, the amount that they're spending on these schemes. And it also seems that strange that they've extended the furlough scheme till the end of March, which is 5 or 6 months, at least November, December, January, February, March. It's 5 months, and yet the lockdown is only for a month. So it makes people think, well, is the lockdown really going to be for a month, or are they going to sort of pause it for Christmas and then bring it back in January? We just don't know at this stage. Now, lockdown means different things in different countries. In some countries, it's total lockdown. You can barely go out to buy things. You need a permit. Here, shops are open for food shops, but not clothing shops and what they call non-essential shops. But Food shops are open, so you can go into the supermarket and buy things. There's no queues, there's no shortage. Schools and colleges and universities are staying open during this lockdown, unlike the last lockdown. And people can still go to work if they have to go to work. Millions of people are now working from home, however, but you can still go to work. You can still go out for non-essential trips, but you're not supposed to go out to just socialise and go to parties, and pubs and restaurants are all but closed apart from some sort of takeaway business. So it really is going to affect these small workers, small businesses and low paid workers in jobs like restaurants. I was in a restaurant the day before the lockdown hit, and I felt sorry for the staff. They all said, well, we're off for a month, what can we do? Some businesses are furloughing staff, some are just getting rid of them because they're kind of casual labour. So it's a very difficult situation for millions of people. Now, the support for the self-employment income scheme, or the SEISS, will be increased, and with a third grant from covering November to January, calculated at 80% of trading profits, up to a maximum of 7,500. Well, that's fine, but millions of self-employed workers are actually slipping through the net and will not qualify. For instance, if you've been recently self-employed and you haven't got much trading profits, or your trading profits for the previous year were low, you can only get 80% of those trading profits. And many businesses in the first couple of years don't make much profit because you're investing in the business, you're not taking much of a salary, you're building up the business, you're perhaps spending more of your money on marketing and new product launches and that sort of thing. And you don't make much of a profit for maybe 2, 3, 4, even 5 years in some cases. Even large businesses like Tesla and Twitter and Amazon didn't make profits for years. So, to get 80% of your trading profit doesn't really help a lot of businesses, unfortunately. And a lot of people who are not self-employed but run their businesses through a limited company have also had problems. Although some people have said you can make yourself put yourself on furlough as the director of the company. You can put you as the employee onto a furlough scheme, but that then depends on how much salary you've been drawing previously, because a lot of people will just draw dividends, and therefore that would not qualify as salary under the furlough scheme. So millions of people have slipped through the net, and millions of people are obviously in problems because they are just self-employed, or they're freelance and this sort of thing, don't make much money, don't declare high profits for the previous year. They are going to be stuck in this situation. So I don't know what's going to happen. They'll have to go on to some sort of benefits. I've had tenants who have had, during the last lockdown, their businesses were destroyed. They were small business owners, and they've even lost their property, lost their homes, and now they're on benefits and living in a sort of a HMO situation that I run. And and they said they've never been in that position in their life. They've never claimed any money from the state. They've never claimed unemployment benefit or any kind of benefit. They've never had to have their rent paid by the state. But they're obviously grateful they have a roof over their head, as many countries don't offer this. So we are lucky to be here in the UK, in a country that does have a safety net, that does have a benefit system that will not let people starve, literally. I mean, even people who come in from overseas on a boat are put into hotels, and thousands of homeless people that have been on the streets have been taken off the streets and put into hotels or put into some sort of temporary accommodation. So believe me, you can complain about this country, but we have literally, by just being born here, we have won the lottery, in my opinion, because it is a great country to be in. And yes, we're in huge debt as a country, but I'm sure we can work this out over the coming years, and however long it will take. So be grateful that you are in this country. And I've written about this actually in my book, Yes, Money Can Buy You Happiness, and talked about the UK. A lot of people say, oh, there's no opportunity, but this place is falling over itself with opportunity if you look for it and if you work for it. And that's why people are coming here on a raft, just to get their foot on UK soil, not to get benefits, but to build a new life for themselves, because they know the opportunities are here, and it's a fair society. So no matter where you come from, you can climb the ladder, unlike in many other countries that hold you back. So I think we've got to be grateful. Now, what happened at the end of this week, now we're still waiting for the election results, and we don't know if Trump is going to concede or whether we're going into a long legal battle. But it looks like Biden has taken the lead in a key state, Pennsylvania, which will put him one step closer to this number of 270 electoral college votes that will gain him the election. And Trump has got more of the popular vote, as did Clinton in the last election, which she lost. But that doesn't really matter, because it's where you've got the votes and which seat you win. Like in the UK, you can become Prime Minister, you can form a government, maybe you've only got 40% of the overall vote, but because you've won it in key seats, and it's the number of seats and the number of MPs that make up the election, it's not just a straightforward count across the board. It's not like that. There are many different election systems. And this is a first past the post system in this country. But as I said, you can win an election without having necessarily more than the number of people voting for you, or an overall majority. Brexit was different. We know Brexit vote was an overall majority. 17 million people voted to leave the UK, and that's still coming up. That's still hanging over us. And the European Union are playing hardball and not giving us a favourable trade deal. The opposition parties say we should have a trade deal. But Oliver Dowden, the culture minister, was on Question Time last night. He's actually my local MP. And he said the problem is with Labour that they want a deal at any cost. And we're not going to enter into a deal with Europe at any cost. Europe would like to have a deal, but they want to tie us up in knots. They want to have control of this and that, our fishing rights and the city and our laws, and that's what we're trying to avoid. We're trying to become an independent country, not be tied into what Europe wants and what the European Union wants, which, let's face it, is dominated by Germany and France. So we cannot play or dance to their tune. We have to do this properly, and if that means leaving without a deal, then I think would be the best option, rather than enter into a deal which could tie us up for decades to come at unfavourable terms. So I think the government is right to hold firm and hold out for a best deal. So in all this turmoil, what do you think happened to the stock market? Well, the stock market went up. It's not going down. This is the worst economic crisis since the Second World War. The stock market went up and property prices have hit new highs. They're actually peaked again, according to the Halifax survey and the nationwide survey. So it's unbelievable. The property market is quite busy, although it's busy and it's busy. There are not that many properties on the market, so the ones that are coming up on the market are selling. Lending hit new highs or hit a new peak for the last few years in September. So trade is going on. I mean, you can still go out and view properties, you can buy properties, so things are still moving. But it just seems strange that the stock market is up and property prices are up during the worst crisis since the Second World War and the worst debt this country has seen since the Second World War. It's a strange paradox. I don't get it, but we'll have to see what happens next year when this kind of thing unravels and when this Job Furlough scheme eventually comes to an end. The government and the Bank of England announced yesterday it was pumping billions into the economy, and maybe that is fueling higher stock prices, stock market prices, share prices, and maybe that's fueling this lending and a sort of a mini property boom, if you like. But that's going to have to come to an end at some stage, and that's when it will be interesting to see, what is happening. It'll be interesting when the tide goes out, as Warren Buffett says. When the tide goes out, you then get to see who is swimming naked, and that's what I fear is going to happen next year when this starts to unravel. So thanks for listening. Have a great weekend, and do check out my book, Yes, Money Can Buy You Happiness, on Amazon, and do check out my other articles on moneytipsdaily.com. And if you're in a position now where you're worried about your future, you're worried about your money, then check out a broadcast by someone called Ken Honda, who talks about healing your money wounds. Now is the time when you're at home for the next few weeks to do some reading. So I put a link up to a free masterclass by Ken Honda, and do check that out. He's a Japanese #1 best-selling personal author in Japan, a development guru. Very interesting guy. I think it's worth checking out his free masterclass. So have a look at the link here on Facebook or on my moneytipsdaily.com blog. So have a look at that. And thanks for tuning in, everybody on Facebook Great to see you all. Love to hear your comments. Good to see you all. And I got my cousin there, Connor, over from Ireland, watching me there in Ireland. I have many visitors from all over the world on my podcast, so it's great to see you and really appreciate your support. Thanks very much for listening, and bye for now.